Guys, as we head into week 12 fantasy football, at most you have 6 important matchups remaining. Some of you who've secured the bye already, you literally have 2 games to worry about. My point is there's not a lot of time left to add difference makers to the roster. And stashing players, free players, off of waivers is the best way to do that. Alec Pierce, Troy Franklin, Sean Tucker. These are the type of names that I'm talking about. Guys that were on waivers who are now in starting lineups, producing for you, okay? Kyle Monangai, Oronde Gadsden, the list goes on. Woody Marks, even though he was a little disappointing last night, okay? And the first player is Devin Neal. Now, these are deep stashes. These are guys that are supposed to be on waivers. We see Neal here rostered in just 8% of leagues. So he's available in 92% of leagues. He is in a 60-40 split with Alvin Kamara. All right. We look at Kamara last game, 63% of snaps, 25 opportunities, pretty awesome. But 14.5 fantasy points, not very good. 14.5 on 25 touches is not very good, not very efficient in terms of fantasy points. What do we know about fantasy points? Well, they correlate pretty well to real life efficiency as well. So it's safe to say that Alvin Kamara is not 26 years old anymore. Okay. Now, Devin Neal, floating around 40% of snaps, 46 in week 8, 39 in week 9, 35 in week 10. It's a 60-40 split. Why am I so intrigued? Well, the offense has actually looked better with Tyler Shough at QB. We look at the strength of schedule according to Fantasy Pros. Top 3 among running backs, tied for the best strength of schedule. Taking a look at these matchups, Atlanta. We know what Jonathan Taylor did versus them, okay? Miami, easy. Tampa Bay, we saw what Trevion Henderson just did. Carolina, the Jets, and then Tennessee. The only matchup in there where I'm like, okay, it's whatever, is Carolina. Every other matchup is 5 stars. So if Devin Neal begins to see 10, 12 opportunities, these snaps rise to 50%. Maybe Alvin Kamara, who's still nursing this ankle injury, out of the bye week, okay? Limited at practice Thursday. Why? You just had a week off. Well, because he's a veteran, okay? And veterans, when the team has 2 or 3 wins, sometimes they have ankle injuries, if you catch my drift, okay? So Devin Neal, in my opinion, at the running back position, it always depends who's available on waivers. I mean, some of you guys, Sean Tucker's on the waiver right now, right? Some of you guys, Devin Neal's been rostered for a month, so with these stashes, it's supposed to be some deeper names, but he really takes priority over a lot of the stashes. All right, moving on to the wide receiver position. We do have Adonai Mitchell. And I want to hop over to RotoViz real quick, where we will look at the week 11 expected fantasy points at the wide receiver position and fantasy points over expected. What this is, what expected fantasy points is a metric to encapsulate, I think that's a word, the overall usage of a player, and then fantasy points over expected tells you how they performed to it. So for example, you have a wide open 50-yard pass in a PPR league, you drop the ball, okay? That is 6 expected fantasy points. If you drop it, you are -6 over expected, essentially, if that makes sense. If you catch it, you are 0.0, right? If you catch the ball and you break 3 tackles that you shouldn't have broken, you are that many more points over the 6, if that makes sense, okay? So Adonai Mitchell, you see him right here. 3rd worst fantasy points over expected among wide receivers in week 11. Now, he was only expected 9.7 points, but, that's within the top 36 receivers. It's nothing crazy. You see the leader was Michael Wilson with 26, then JSN, Tet, St. Brown. He was not, Adonai Mitchell was not supposed to score 40 points, but, let's just say it as it is. I mean, 6 targets in his first game with the Jets at New England. Tyrod Taylor is now the QB. Much better than Justin Fields. This was with Justin Fields. Dare I say there's a reason he didn't catch 5 of the passes thrown at him. And he didn't play amazing at all, but 6 targets. We look at the strength of schedule for wide receivers. Okay, here are the Jets. 4 stars, top 5 schedule. Wonder why. Baltimore, they'll be losing by 40. So yeah, AD Mitchell will be targeted. Atlanta, awful defense. Awful, to be honest with you. And even if they play well, the Jets will be losing by 20. I'd be surprised if there wasn't 6 or 7 targets there. Miami, we saw what Deebo Samuel just did. Probably another 6 targets. Jacksonville, I don't think they're very good at all versus the wide receiver. Where are they? Middle of the table, 27 points allowed per game to the position, according to Fantasy Pros. New Orleans, easy. And then New England again, which at that point, New England might be resting starters, right? I mean, seriously. So we have Tyrod coming in. AD Mitchell, 6 targets in his first action with the Jets. I really think that we could see 6 targets every game. Okay? I really do. 7% rostered. Garrett Wilson is out at least 3 games. Let's see how the team's doing. Maybe it doesn't heal up right away. If you understand what I'm saying. Moving on now to Pat Bryant. Pat Bryant on the Broncos. So, season high, 6 targets in week 11. Pretty awesome. Caught 5 of them, 82 yards. This is a player that Sean Payton loved during the draft and just went out of his way to grab. Like, this could be an ego scenario with Sean Payton and Pat Bryant where Courtland Sutton's utilization has been dropping off. We've seen Troy Franklin kind of become the wide receiver 1 for this team. What if Pat Bryant against Washington in week 13, against Vegas in week 14, has another 7, 6 targets, starts going crazy? Sean Payton's ego takes over. He is the next Michael Thomas, supposedly, quote, from Sean Payton. I think it's realistic. Again, 5% rostered. Gem. This could be a gem right here. We always see rookies down the stretch, literally the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Some rookies, if you're a good player at the NFL level, you usually cook in those weeks after your bye week. So he is set up for success. Playing around 60%, 50% of snaps. He is out on the field. I think he's set up for success here in a bunch of good matchups. Then you have Jacksonville in week 16. So 3 of the next 4 matchups are very good. Green Bay, I don't necessarily love. Okay. Now, we will move on to my favorite stash on this episode. If I were to rank these guys, number 1 of the people I mentioned today is, yes, Luther Burden. 100%. First of all, you can start him this week, week 12. I think he can be in lineups. Pittsburgh is allowing 31.6 fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, bottom 3. Okay, so I think the time is now. Here's the tweet right here that I just posted. Season high, 5 targets in week 11. Nothing crazy, but let's go to Zacchaeus game log. Olamide Zacchaeus, his game log. What do you notice about week 11? Completely overtaken. Completely overtaken by Luther Burden. Zacchaeus only played 13% of snaps. Didn't see a target. Interesting. Looks a lot like Luther Burden's early season game log at 13% of snaps. In fact, it doesn't. He's actually always played more. So Zacchaeus is completely relegated out of relevance here. And we've seen games, 7 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 8 targets, where Zacchaeus has been relevant. Week 9 caught that touchdown on 8 targets, 17 fantasy points. If you give this man 7 or 8 targets, this guy right here, wide receiver 2. He is a wide receiver 2 on 7 targets per game, rest of season. 100%. Pittsburgh matchup, elite. Philly, not so much, but you just never know against Philly. You never know. I doubt Quinyon Mitchell is going to be shadowing Luther Burden. Green Bay, we just talked about Green Bay. I don't love it. Cleveland, you can't run on them. Short passes are the way to go. Who catches those on this team? This guy. San Fran, easy, okay? So that's kind of what we're talking about with Luther Burden. Maybe DJ Moore. We're talking about veterans kind of taking the end of the season slow. Maybe he gets injured, right? Who knows? We're not going to hope for injuries. We're not going to bank on injuries, but it's always a possibility that we should discuss. At the end of the episode, we're going to do a whole rundown of the top running backs and who the handcuff is. So stay tuned. Moving on. Now this guy, Blake Corum, was most likely dropped in a ton of leagues because you look at the game log, right? And just ignore the utilization here for a second, but you look at week 11, right? And you see, ooh, yeah, wow, 1.5 fantasy points in PPR, not very good. Well, he was stuffed 3 times at the goal line. I'll bring you back over to RotoViz, and we will go to fantasy points over expected, week 11. Who was the most underperforming running back? Who underperformed the most in week 11? There he is, Blake Corum. RotoViz had him at 14.3 expected fantasy points. Now, say he just did what was given to him, right, with his utilization, scored 14.3 fantasy points. I think this roster percentage is up around 45%, probably. And people are thinking about starting him versus Tampa Bay. You're reading articles online about how you can start Blake Corum, right? That's the difference. 4 straight games with 10 plus opportunities. 3 of those 4, 12 plus rushes in essentially the best offense in the league right now. Getting goal line work. So this is a very valuable stash. One of the best handcuffs in fantasy. Anytime you have a handcuff that has standalone value, monster upside. Absolutely must be rostered. It really is Burden, Neal, Corum as the top 3 in my opinion. I still have Neal ahead of Corum. I just need to see like another week, okay, of this split. Monitor the Chimere injury. Because realistically, if Neal is the starting running back, guys, and he's going to get 25 opportunities in any one of these games, 25 opportunities for Neal, okay, week 17 at Tennessee, or versus the Jets, or Tampa Bay, or Miami, any one of these games. If Chimere misses one game, you have a top 18 running back. So when there's only 6 games left, that's how we have to think. Looking at Corum, the schedule's not as good, but the offense is much better. If Kyron were to miss any time and Corum's going to see 20 plus opportunities, he's an RB1 in these matchups, right? But would I rather have Corum versus Detroit as the RB1, right? Or would I rather have Devin Neal versus Tennessee, right? Like, I think I lean the latter. It's up to you, but Burden is first, and then I have both those RBs. All right, we're going to move on here to Chimere Dike. We have Calvin Ridley out for the year, okay? We have Alec Ayomanor, who, I've said it many times on this show, arguably, for a guy who has his role, like a real starter in this offense, since essentially week 1, I don't know if I've ever seen a worse wide receiver, to be honest. Now, listen, I'm a guy, I got my laptop up, I'm speaking into a mic. I've never played a down of football in my life, but Alec Ayomanor is not it. All right, let's just leave it at that. Not it. I mean, quite literally, if everyone on the team who catches passes did not play and it was only Ayomanor, it was Cam Ward to Ayomanor every single play or they're running it, I would not start him in fantasy. He's that bad. He is not ready for this league. Word. With that being said, Chimere Dike had a mini breakout here week 7 through 8. Okay? Let's look at the points leaders. Week 7 through 8 at the wide receiver position here in half PPR. Pretty crazy that he's right here, 11th among all wide receivers, guys. There's the list of best wide receivers, weeks 7 through 8. Now, it's only 2 games, okay? But 14.9 points, 12.9 points, averaging 13.9. Right here, okay? They bumped him up to 89, 87% of snaps. Not sure what happened here with 27% of snaps for Houston. I genuinely don't know. So he's a lower priority stash, still rostered in 22%. He might get dropped, whatever, but if Ayomanor's out, Ridley's out, we got Van Jefferson, okay? And DK. So it's interesting. And looking at the matchups, it's kind of similar with AD Mitchell, where they actually don't really matter because the team is going to be losing by a lot of points. And in there, you have some that are playable. Jacksonville, good matchup. San Fran, good matchup. New Orleans, good matchup. So he's a good stash, for sure. And guys, that's going to do it for the stash part. I want to talk about real quick, just a quick rundown of the best handcuffs in fantasy, okay? Because you should be checking your waiver for these guys, and we will just do a handcuff analysis. I'm quite literally going to sort by best RBs, and we're going to take a look, all right? So with JT, it's either Giddens or the other guy. Let me look. This is a tough one because they use the other guy more. What's his name? Goodson, and then you have Abdullah. So JT is a hard running back to handcuff, to be honest. he is not easy. We look at Amir Abdullah. He plays like 6% of snaps, 1 or 2 touches a game. We look at Goodson, pretty similar, 1 or 2 touches a game. And then we look at Giddens, who's been inactive. So I think if JT were to miss any time, and again, this is like the stud is out, okay? These guys are out. Where are they? JT misses the game, right? Who's benefiting? It's tough here. I actually don't think it's Giddens. We all want it to be Giddens. He's probably the best running back other than JT on the team, but it won't be. What it would be is probably Goodson on the ground. So in half PPR, you lean Goodson. In full PPR, you lean Amir Abdullah. I don't think any of them need to be rostered unless you're really end game, like you have the bye, you have JT, you're assembling your squad. You pick up Abdullah in PPR, Goodson in half. All right, let's just quickly run down the list here. Christian McCaffrey, obviously it's Bryant Robinson. If you have Robinson and you are not the McCaffrey owner, trade him to the McCaffrey owner for a low-end flex. If not, enjoy Bryant Robinson if Christian McCaffrey goes down. Achane is Ali Gordon. Bajan is Algier. Algier is kind of in the Corum category, right? Like, I think Corum is much closer to Algier. Okay? And notice how Algier is not mentioned on the show today because he's like 60% rostered. So that shows you how undervalued Corum is. Gibbs, you cannot handcuff. If you have Monty, you should be considering starting him alongside Gibbs. You don't want to do that because every time one scores, the other one loses points, if that makes sense. And we're not going to roster Craig Reynolds or whoever the other RB is. James Cook, it is Ray Davis. Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson. It's the whole point we're having this conversation. You see how quickly things change. And we have RB2s, if not RB1s, sitting on waivers. Kyron, Blake Corum. Javonte, it's actually Malik Davis. Interesting, because Malik Davis was cut from the team, I think, right? Yeah. I think he got cut. And now he's back on the team or something. So it was looking like Phil Maffa was going to be the guy. We mentioned Phil Maffa on this show last week. I'm like, whoever is the backup RB for the Cowboys is valuable. But then Malik Davis, 20% of snaps, 4 rushes. So he is the handcuff to Javonte. Very important owned if you have Javonte. He's a very important player in fantasy. Rico Dowdle, it's Chuba. He's going to be dropped. If you have Dowdle, cuff him with Chuba. Saquon, it is Tank Bigsby. ETN is Tootin, must be rostered. Derrick Henry is Keaton Mitchell, one of my favorite stashes in fantasy. Not mentioned today because I've mentioned him for 10 straight weeks, and he should be rostered in every single league. Breece Hall, you have Isaiah Davis, right? Breece Hall could do a veteran hamstring injury as well down the stretch. Ash Genty, I guess it's Mostert. Swift is Manungai. RIP Scadaboo, no longer playing. Chase Brown, it is P. Ryan. I wish it was Taj Brooks. It is Perrine. Henderson, it's like a 50-50, obviously. Dobbins has been injured. It's RJ Harvey. Judkins, if you own him. Sampson. Warren, it's Gainwell. Ken Walker, it's like a 50-50. Same thing with Monty. Then we have Harvey, right? And now we're getting kind of out of the territory where you're going to be considering handcuffing. But if you are in the final stage of your roster here, right? And you're looking, your RBs are James Cook and Quinton Judkins at RB2. You should own Davis and Sampson. Both should be on your roster. You should sleep soundly at night knowing your RB spot is completely bulletproof. And those are my thoughts, guys. Heading into week 12, those are the stashes. Good luck.